So since we did the last video, I've actually got some software to edit videos. Quite pleased about that. So there's going to be probably some improvements, like I'll be able to cut away to a picture of something, or even get more adventurous with future videos. It gives me an idea. So I'm having ideas as we're talking. Really bad. I'm not very well organized. I'm not very good at these sort of things, so maybe some more obscure things will probably be more my kind of thing, which I think maybe now I've got the video editing software, we might see some more unusual things as opposed to me talking. So we had a question. If you do have questions, put them in the comments below, like that. I'm getting used to this. Put them in the comments below and I'll try and answer them next time. One of the questions was Come From Heaven cover. People wanted to know the story behind it. I'll just go in a bit closer there. This is the photo. I've kept it. You can see there obviously what it was, but this photo, it does have a story behind it, because this was taken just after we finished mixing at Real World. So Come From Heaven was mixed in Bath, actually just outside a place called Box at Real World Studios. Andy Bradfield came down from London to mix it. He was doing quite a few things for Virgin, and he'd had obviously his hits with the Spice Girls, so they wanted him to mix it. We were like, all right, okay, interesting, Spice Girls to Alpha, but it worked very well because obviously he's a very talented man. So when we'd finished the album, I went with Sam for a break to Cornwall and took this picture. And when I can't remember, the guy who helped us put the artwork together was saying, let's try and pick some photos from your own photo libraries to put the album together, and he chose this to crop in and use for the cover. I've often thought that there's some sort of story behind what's going on with the boy or girl, but I think it's a boy. I will explain the cover of Dust because it's related to a track called Take Your Time. There's a connection between that track and this cover, which we will discuss on the next one, but that's when things get a little deeper. When I was looking through some bits, I keep coming across bits and pieces from my past. Like, I found this cassette tape. Look at that. That's a cassette. Yeah, cassette was sent out from Melancholic to people, obviously for promotional reasons. It's got the address of Virgin on the back there. Plus, I found other things like this. Remember these things? Filofaxes. This is my Filofax. I've kept it because I'm sad. And no, I don't use it anymore. No. And it's got loads of addresses, phone numbers in it, funny enough. There's also some, there's quite a few things about Alpha in it. There's discussions about releases coming out, Alpha releases and things like that. On with what I wanted to talk about, actually, got it here. On the screen here, this, right, we were talking about, you were asking me about inspirations on things like Come From Heaven and how we got to Dust. And of course it didn't, I did come from heaven, but things started much earlier than that. Obviously I was going back as a kid, growing up in a musical family. And my dad was a jazz musician, played clarinet in jazz bands. My mum was a singer in choirs, so I was constantly listening to her singing in the house. I mean, full on Latin, like choir, very impressive. So it's always stayed with me. And my brother Damien, who is 8 years older than me, so he had like the kind of like, he was like the Mr. Music. That was my brother's bedroom, so he let me put my drums in his bedroom, which is pretty cool. Which that's where I started to learn, and just after that, we started getting into recording. And back then, you had to record. You could hire recording machines, 4 tracks on cassettes. Back to the cassettes again, and it was just like you could take it home with you, and record. And this was like, oh my god! So you could, and you could do 4 tracks. So you record one thing like drums and then bass, and you could let it up. And this was, to me, this was just amazing. Growing up as a kid, thinking, oh my god! And the Beatles record on 4 tracks. They did it. So could we. And that's where it all began for me. That kind of like very excited about being able to record and start layering sounds and doing that. And that was really how I got into. That's the reason I got into where I am now. And I'll stick a picture up actually of the machine we used all the time, the Tascam 244. But we got together actually. We didn't do much stuff together. And we did this one track. There's no name. Damien told me actually there's no name for the track. It was just the band name, which was the Whirly Byrds, spelt Byrds, obviously. And Damien being a massive Beatles fan, and I mean I'm obviously into the Beatles too. We did a Beatles like tribute song, which I am going to put on YouTube for you to listen to. Now I've just remastered it because Damien actually found the track, because remember this is a long time ago. Got it off cassette. I've remastered it a little bit just to bring it up a little bit. It's surprising, and after remastering it, surprising how much stuff's in this song. This is 4 tracks, so we must have bounced. So bouncing means like you might record the drums and the bass, and then I'm gonna and maybe a guitar. Oh no, you couldn't do that because you can't bounce to an adjacent track. I remember that now. Yeah, so you could do 2 tracks and bounce it to so you do record on 1 and 2 and bounce it onto 4, and then go back over, re-record over 1 and 2, and then take 1, 2, or maybe 2 and 4. You'd have to go 3 and 4 and put them back on 1. You had to pre-plan. you couldn't just go ahead and start recording. You had to think a few stages ahead, so you could layer up and get more and more. But of course, each time you bounce, you lose quality, and especially on these machines, this is a cassette. The tape's like this thin, so each track's tiny. I know the tape quality is good, but the thickness is tiny. You compare it to the Beatles; they're recording on big tape, so each track's like this fat. So really amazing quality, which is why their stuff sounds so good. The recording machines were brilliant, as well as their great mics. So we had crap 4-track and crap microphones, but we produced this track. And it's that trying to get that Beatles thing. We did loads of stuff with the drums, like Ringo would do with the matchboxes and tea towels, and there's even backwards hi-hat. I was mastering it and going, hold on a minute, I can hear it now. There's backwards hi-hat in there as well, and shakers and keyboards and guitars and bass and vocals, all on 4-track. Amazing. Anyway, so that's I'll upload that. You'll be able to play that as just a picture of myself and my brother Damien, and you'll be able to listen to that. And anyway, so that shows you that influence that I had right back then, which I brought back into again this album, which I wanted to do. Again, that constant searching to get that brilliant Ringo drum sound, which I don't think I still really got. Maybe one day I'll get there. So at the end of the track is this weird sampley bit. Damien reminded me of this, and so we did it over 3 weekends. Must have hired the machine for each weekend. And at the end, I recorded this thing at 3 in the morning using this guitar pedal, a delay guitar pedal, which you could hold the sample section, because the digital delay would sample and hold it in a small bit of memory, but you could play this back on the pedal. It's like the first sort of sampler. So I created this thing. It's at the end of the track on the weird thing on the end. Anyway, first bit of sampling I done. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. I think it's going to be a slightly more as I say, got this editor, so I can now cut out all my bumbly bits. Actually, that's really interesting. I could cut, when I forget what I'm trying to say, I could cut those bits out and make it seem professional, maybe.